Here's something that should be impossible. A girl born in a small province in Thailand, who spoke zero Korean when she first arrived alone in Seoul, who was the only non-Korean trainee out of thousands of hopefuls to pass one of the most brutal auditions in the music industry, became the most followed K-pop artist in history on Instagram. Over 100 million followers. But that's not even the part that keeps executives at major American labels up at night. The part that nobody can fully explain, the part that has music industry analysts, psychologists, and cultural critics all pointing at the same woman, is why American audiences specifically are obsessed with her. Not fans, obsessed. We're talking about a woman who can post a single photo and crash Instagram's engagement servers. A woman whose solo debut music video shattered YouTube records that had stood for years. A woman who showed up to Coachella, the undisputed holy grail of American music culture, and sent shockwaves so powerful, people are still talking about them today. Her name is Lisa. And if you think you already understand why she's famous, I promise you, you don't. Not really. Because this isn't a story about K-pop going global. It's not a story about impressive choreography or a pretty face. This is a story about something much more interesting, the psychology of obsession. Why millions of Americans who have never bought a K-pop album find themselves unable to look away from one woman from Thailand. And stay with me until the very end of this video, because I'm going to tell you something that almost no mainstream outlet has ever connected. A single thread that runs through her entire story. Something that explains on a fundamental level why Lisa isn't just a celebrity. She's actively rewriting the rules of what global stardom can look like. This is the full story. Let's start from the very beginning. Because the origin story here is unlike anything you've heard before. 1. Origin story. March 27, 1997. Buriram, Thailand. A girl named Lalisa Manobal is born. She'll later change her name to Lalisa, a name that in Thai culture means the one who is praised. But eventually, the whole world would simply call her Lisa. Growing up, Lisa wasn't the kid with a master plan. She was just a kid who loved to dance. And not in a, oh, that's adorable way. In the way where teachers stop what they're doing to watch. In the way where other dancers exchange glances that say, this one is different. By the time she was in elementary school, she was already training at a dance academy in Bangkok. And something was becoming clear to everyone who watched her. Lisa didn't just learn choreography. She absorbed it. She transformed it into something personal. She made it hers. In 2010, YG Entertainment, one of South Korea's most powerful and demanding entertainment companies, home at the time to global acts like Big Bang and 2NE1, held auditions across Asia. They came to Thailand. Thousands of hopefuls showed up. Lisa was 13 years old. Here's what you need to understand about what happened next. YG auditions aren't like a talent show. There's no warm encouragement. The competition is savage. The evaluators are stone-faced. And the odds for any individual trainee making the cut are genuinely slim. But for a non-Korean applicant at an audition in Thailand, the odds were almost statistical zero. Lisa not only passed, by multiple accounts, she was the standout of the entire Thai audition. She moved to Seoul, alone. At 13 years old, she spoke no Korean. She knew almost no one. And she walked directly into one of the most competitive training environments on Earth. Let that actually land for a moment. Most people, when they imagine K-pop trainee life, picture something like an intensive performing arts school. It is not. K-pop training programs are closer to elite military-level athletic conditioning. You train for hours, sometimes 6-8 hours a day. Dance, vocals, languages, stage presence, media training, fitness. You are evaluated constantly. You can be cut without warning. And you may train for years before ever debuting, if you debut at all. Lisa trained for nearly 5 years. And during those 5 years, she quietly, relentlessly, became something that her fellow trainees and instructors could see, but struggled to articulate. She had what people in the industry call it factor, that ineffable quality where you put 100 talented performers on a stage and your eyes find one person. Every single time. She was also building a reputation for something else. Something that would later become a defining characteristic of her American fanbase's devotion. Her genuineness. In an industry where artists are meticulously molded and packaged, Lisa had a warmth, a playfulness, and a self-awareness that felt real. Not performed. In August 2016, BLACKPINK debuted. 4 members, 1 group. And from that first performance, observers noticed something. When Lisa was on screen, the energy in the room changed. Something was starting. Nobody quite knew yet how far it would go. 2. The obsession begins. April 2019. Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival, Indio, California. If you're not deeply familiar with Coachella, understand what it represents in American culture. It's not just a music festival. It's a cultural declaration. The acts on that stage aren't just performing. They're being stamped with legitimacy by one of the most selective, taste-making audiences in the world. The Coachella lineup is a statement about who matters right now. In 2019, BLACKPINK became the first K-pop group to perform there. They didn't just perform. They commanded. Lisa hit that stage with a precision and physical authority that made American audiences stop and recalibrate what they were watching. This wasn't pop music performance at the level they were accustomed to seeing at festivals. The technique was elite. The stage presence was absolute. And Lisa's command, the way she owned every square foot of that stage with every move, became an instant talking point across every platform that weekend. Twitter broke. American music critics who had maybe written a couple of polite, slightly condescending pieces about K-pop were suddenly scrambling to write genuine think pieces. And at the center of many of those pieces was one question: who exactly is Lisa? After Coachella, things moved quickly. BLACKPINK appeared across American television, The Late Late Show, Good Morning America, and every time, Lisa's clips spread the fastest. Not because the group wasn't impressive, but because Lisa had a quality that required zero cultural context to appreciate. She was magnetic on camera in an immediate cross-cultural way. Then came the solo era. September 2021. Lisa releases her debut single, Lalisa, and the numbers that followed were, even by the standards of a group already used to record-breaking, staggering. The music video racked up 73.6 million YouTube views in its first 24 hours, setting the record for a solo K-pop act. It debuted on the Billboard Hot 100. Forbes covered it. Rolling Stone covered it. Publications that 5 years earlier would have categorized K-pop as a cultural footnote were now treating Lisa as a mainstream American story. And then there was social media. And these numbers matter. Lisa's Instagram growth during this period was unlike anything the platform had seen from a K-pop artist. 60 million followers, 70 million, 80 million, 100 million. She became the most followed K-pop artist in the history of the platform, a number that places her in the same tier as the biggest Western celebrities on Earth. Not biggest K-pop celebrities, biggest celebrities, period. But here's the detail that's easy to overlook. In all these statistics, the American fan base wasn't just growing in size. It was shifting in character. Because among Lisa's growing American audience, there were people who had never considered themselves K-pop fans. People who weren't tracking BLACKPINK's discography or collecting photocards. They were simply following Lisa. Personally. Specifically. Almost like they knew her. And that is where it gets truly fascinating. Because the question isn't just how the obsession started. It's why it runs so deep. And psychologists actually have an answer. 3. The psychology of the fandom. Let's talk about something that most celebrity coverage never touches. The actual psychology of what happens when millions of people become obsessed with someone they've never met. There's a concept in psychology called parasocial relationships. It describes the one-sided emotional bonds people form with media figures, celebrities, influencers, even fictional characters. You feel like you know them. You feel emotionally invested in their well-being. You celebrate their wins and feel their losses. And all of this happens despite the fact that the relationship only flows one direction. Parasocial relationships are common. Most of us have them. But the intensity of those relationships varies enormously depending on the celebrity. And Lisa generates a level of parasocial connection that researchers who study fandom have begun to actively analyze. There are specific reasons for it. The first factor is what I'd call the authenticity paradox. We're living in an era of relentlessly curated celebrity content, where every post is workshopped by a PR team and every public appearance is carefully managed within an inch of its life. Audiences know this. They're sophisticated now. Their defenses are up. And into this landscape, Lisa consistently projects something that reads as genuinely real. The way she laughs unexpectedly. The way she talks with obvious sincerity about things she loves. The way she cries at meaningful moments without any apparent calculation. When American audiences perceive that authenticity, and they do, almost immediately, they lower their defenses. And that is precisely when parasocial attachment deepens into something much stronger. The second factor is aspirational identity. Lisa embodies a narrative arc that resonates in a very specific and powerful way with the American cultural imagination, the self-made outsider who conquers foreign terrain through sheer, undeniable excellence. She moved to a country where she didn't speak the language at 13 years old. She had no connections, no family nearby, no guaranteed path. She had talent and relentless will, and she built something the world couldn't ignore. That story maps almost perfectly onto the foundational myths Americans tell about themselves and their country. The third factor is technical awe, and this one is deeply underestimated. Psychologists have identified a specific emotional response called elevation, a warm, expansive feeling that arises when we witness exceptional human performance. Athletes trigger it. Great musicians trigger it. And anyone who watches Lisa dance, really watches, not just as background entertainment, experiences it. Her technical ability is genuinely elite. Not impressive for pop music elite. Ballet-trained choreographers and professional hip-hop dancers who have studied her movement have noted that her control, her precision, and her ability to shift fluidly between styles, hip-hop, ballet, contemporary, whacking, reflects years of extraordinarily dedicated training. When American viewers see that, something neurological happens. Their brains register, this person is exceptional. Pay attention. The fourth factor, perhaps the most culturally specific, is the dynamic scholars sometimes call the accessible other. Lisa exists simultaneously as deeply different from her Western audiences and deeply, warmly, recognizably human. She moves between Thai, Korean, and English-speaking cultures. She bridges distances that others can't. And on camera, she does it with ease and humor. For American audiences, that combination is almost irresistible. Put all four of these forces together: authentic presence, aspirational narrative, technical mastery, cultural bridge, and you have something beyond a celebrity. You have a figure that people feel they personally know, genuinely admire, and emotionally root for. That combination is extraordinarily rare, and it doesn't fade. 4. Cultural impact and influence. Let's look at what Lisa has actually built. Because when you lay it all out in one place, you realize quickly that we're not talking about a music career. We're talking about a cultural empire. Start with fashion, because the story here is significant in ways that go far beyond celebrity endorsement. In 2019, Celine, one of the most prestigious and aesthetically uncompromising French luxury houses in the world, named Lisa their global brand ambassador. Now, understand what this means. Celine is not in the business of attaching their name to whoever has the most followers. They are known for radical selectivity and a razor-sharp aesthetic vision. Their choice of Lisa sent a clear message to the entire fashion industry. This woman is not a K-pop star who also models. She is a global cultural figure who happens to make music. The fashion world responded accordingly. Lisa's choices began driving trends in real time. When she appeared somewhere in a specific look, it sold out, sometimes within hours. Her front-row presence at Paris shows became news in itself. Stylists and editors who cover the highest tier of fashion started treating Lisa's attendance as a highlight, not an afterthought. But here's what makes this more than standard celebrity fashion influence, and this is something American media hasn't fully acknowledged. Lisa was shifting the representation conversation at the very top of luxury fashion. Asian women at the global ambassador level for houses of Celine's stature were exceptionally rare. Her visibility there wasn't just commercially impactful, it was culturally meaningful in ways that reverberated far beyond any individual fan community. Then there's the social media dimension. Lisa is the most followed K-pop solo artist on Instagram. Her follower count exceeds 100 million, a number that places her in honest conversation with the biggest Western celebrities on the platform. Not biggest K-pop names, biggest names, period. And her engagement rates, the percentage of followers who actually interact, remain remarkably high for an account that size. Large accounts typically see engagement collapse as follower counts grow. Lisa's audience doesn't just follow her, they show up. And then, perhaps the most quietly significant cultural impact, there is dance. Lisa's choreography has generated hundreds of millions of TikTok recreations. Not just from K-pop fans, from dancers across genres, hip-hop dancers in Atlanta, contemporary dancers in New York, high school students in suburban Midwest towns who have never listened to a K-pop song but learned a Lisa routine from their For You page. She is penetrating American youth culture through movement in a way no Korean artist has ever managed before. And underneath all of it, All the fashion, the social media dominance, the cross-genre dance influence, Lisa was quietly proving something that the music industry had assumed wasn't possible. That the path to American cultural relevance no longer had to run through America first. You could build global scale everywhere simultaneously and make America come to you. But the story isn't all triumphs. Because what comes next, the part nobody likes to talk about, is what actually reveals who Lisa is as a person. 5. The controversies and staying power. Nobody reaches this level without walking through fire. And Lisa's story has genuine shadows in it, the kind that most fan accounts skip over because they're uncomfortable. But they're important, because understanding the obstacles is the only way to understand the staying power. Let's start with something Lisa has spoken about carefully and quietly: racism. Lisa is Thai. She operates within an industry, Korean pop music, where non-Korean artists face structural disadvantages that are rarely discussed openly in Western coverage. For years, portions of Korean media and elements of the Korean fan community treated Lisa as a permanent outsider, talented, exceptional, but always marked as foreign. There were incidents of colorist commentary about her appearance. There was the persistent othering that accompanied being the foreign member in a cultural context where ethnic homogeneity is often the unstated standard. And then she moved into the American market, a country with its own deeply complicated history of how it perceives and treats Asian women. The dynamic that makes her aspirational and magnetic to American audiences can, in less generous hands, tip into something more reductive. Lisa has navigated that tension with a poise that is almost unnerving in how consistent it is. She rarely addresses it directly. She simply keeps moving. That, in itself, is a statement. Then there was the structural tension of her solo career against her group obligations. BLACKPINK's contractual arrangement with YG Entertainment was the subject of years of fan speculation and quiet industry conversation. The members had limited creative control over scheduling and release timelines. And for Lisa, whose solo commercial potential was becoming increasingly undeniable, the glacial pace of that system created visible friction. Fans waited years between content cycles. Major Western publications kept asking where the music was. When Lalisa finally released in 2021 and broke records immediately, it made the restraint of the preceding years feel even more pronounced. The appetite was clearly there. The system had been slow to feed it. Lisa never aired grievances publicly. She didn't subtweet. She did not complain on camera. She worked. In 2023, her contract with YG Entertainment expired. She did not renew. This was a genuine shock to the K-pop industry. The most globally followed K-pop artist had walked away from the company that built her. She formed her own company, LLOUD. She signed a recording deal with RCA Records. And in 2024, she released Rockstar, a track that debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 and announced, unmistakably, that she was building the next chapter entirely on her own terms. Then came the Crazy Horse controversy. In late 2023, Lisa performed at Crazy Horse Paris, a legendary and explicitly adult cabaret. The response was immediate and polarizing. Korean media was largely critical. Some fans felt discomfort. Others saw it as a bold assertion of creative autonomy from a woman who had spent years operating inside a very tightly controlled system. Lisa said nothing defensive. She posted photos. She moved on. Her follower count went up. Her streaming numbers climbed. The American fan base, culturally accustomed to artists asserting creative and personal sovereignty, largely read the moment exactly as it appeared, a woman making her own choices, on her own terms, finally. Controversy, it turns out, is often proof of relevance. Only people who truly matter generate controversies that millions of people care enough to argue about. And all of this, every piece of it, brings us to the final question, the one that actually matters. Is Lisa a moment? Or is she something that lasts? 6. The verdict. Here's the honest verdict. Most viral celebrity moments are exactly that. Moments. A song that dominates for a summer. A face that appears on every cover for 6 months and then quietly recedes. A meme that spreads and evaporates. The American entertainment industry is extraordinarily good at producing stars and then discarding them once the novelty fades. Lisa is not that. And the reason why circles back to the thing I told you at the beginning of this video I'd return to, the thread that runs through her entire story that most mainstream coverage has never fully connected. Lisa's hold on American audiences is not really about K-pop. It's not about any specific song or music video or Instagram post. It's about something rarer and impossible to manufacture: narrative. Her story has a shape that American audiences are hardwired to respond to. a girl from Thailand who moved alone to a foreign country at 13, survived one of the most grueling training systems in the entertainment world, became the most followed K-pop artist on Earth, and then, when the contract was up, walked away from the company that made her, built her own label, and started over on her own terms. That story has the structure of something Americans have always loved. It's the immigrant story, the underdog story, the "they told me it couldn't be done and I did it anyway" story. It is, in many ways, a direct echo of the foundational myth that American culture tells about itself. You come from somewhere different, you work harder than everyone around you, and if you're genuinely exceptional, the world eventually cannot ignore you. Lisa lived that story, transparently, in real time, across every major platform on Earth, and millions of Americans watched it happen and felt, in a genuine psychological sense, that they were part of it. That is why she isn't a trend. Trends are about aesthetics. Cultural phenomena are about meaning. And Lisa has accumulated meaning, the kind that attaches to a person, not a product. The kind that makes millions of people feel that her success is, in some small way, also theirs. She's 27 years old. She's the most followed K-pop artist in history. She is building her own record company. She's a global ambassador for one of the world's great fashion houses. She is producing her own music, writing her own narrative, on her own schedule. She is, by any serious measure, just getting started. So, I want to leave you with a genuine question, one I actually want your answer to, in the comments below. Is Lisa's rise a sign that the global music industry has fundamentally changed? That the path to American cultural relevance no longer has to start in America? Or is she genuinely singular? A once-in-a-generation talent whose success can't be replicated by anyone following the same path? Leave your answer below. And if you want to understand what's really happening beneath the surface of global pop culture right now, subscribe, because we're going deeper.